Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Aiara.
and welcome to the Mustardcast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how it's used across different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. So, as you guys can see, there's a new opening animation. I've been working on it for a couple weeks now. Aiera has seen it every step of the way.
Hmm.
Been working hard. Towards the end, let me tell you, it got difficult because I went from Procreate to After Effects, and there was a bunch of complications during the process that I realized certain things didn't line up, or I had to figure out how to keyframe certain things. It was a process, but I got it done, and it looks good, and I'm excited for it to finally be a part of the podcast. I'm working on creating a version of that same animation for the outro, but I'm having trouble making it transparent so that like the hand comes over the the overlay, but it doesn't completely black it out with the color. But we'll see. Um, but let's move on to what media we're consuming. You can start.
I finally finished Trigun. Finally
Fantastic,
finished. Yes,
fantastic, good.
finally finished
Because
Trigun.
my notes on Trigun are so short because I thought you wouldn't have seen it, but now that you have, I don't even have to add to my notes. I already know what I want to talk about. So we'll get there because that theory I had turned out to be
Uh-huh.
completely true. But
Yep.
we'll get there.
Finally finished Trigun. I'm starting the manga now. Because I
Fantastic. Because I'm also going to
I
talk about
have
that.
I have such bad Trigun brain. Like it was so good. I loved it. We'll talk more about it though. Making plans to see the Mario movie. That's it. This weekend was all about Trigun. I'm like, let me finish it. Automata is on hiatus. I don't have anything else to do on Saturday. Let me buckle down and finish this damn anime. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so for me, I've been watching Friends. I really like Friends. And recently, I forget which actor, I think the actor that plays Rachel, I can't remember her name right now, came out talking about how, uh, something about how the show couldn't be made today about, certain subject matter. And it's
Mhm.
like, and then, a lot of people are like, yeah, you're right, because there's a lot of weird stuff in it. And I agree, but like, Friends is one of those shows where, people know that the writers ripped off In Living Color, which um, I'm going to watch. No, Living Single and Living Color was a sketch show. Was a black sketch
Mhm.
show by the Wayne brothers. But Living Single, they ripped off. And I'm gonna watch Living Single eventually. But Friends is good. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like Friends is bad. I like Friends. Friends is a good show, and it's definitely a case of something that got really popular. When something gets popular enough, people just start hating on it. And the
Right.
reality is, those people still make a lot of money from that show because a lot of people still watch that show.
Mhm.
And despite what the very loud people on the internet might say, the people who aren't, giving their opinion about Friends on the internet are just watching it and enjoying it, like myself.
Right.
So she's right. Like the reality is, it's an old show, and when a show's old, there's bound to be some outdated stuff in it, and sometimes you just have to accept that, and obviously analyze it and talk about why it's wrong. Of course, that's fine, but it happened. There's nothing you can do to stop it other than make sure it doesn't happen again. So
Yeah.
it's not let's not pretend like Friends is the worst perpetrator of this thing.
Right.
It's
Seinfeld exists. No, I'm kidding.
Even though I also like Seinfeld. Like a lot of old comedies have jokes that just don't work today.
Yeah. Don't
They're
age well. That's fine.
And that's fine. And it's okay for you to still find it funny.
Right.
you just you just have to recognize that it was wrong, even if it is a little bit funny. Like we were talking about.
Exactly.
Well, was it you? I was talking to somebody about Scary Movie. Was it you?
I think it was me. Yeah.
Yeah, about how that Scary Movie is horribly offensive, but it's so funny.
Right.
But also was hanging out with a friend over a week we had off from work, and I rewatched Malcolm and Marie, which I've been wanting to rewatch so I can try and remember the conversation me and T had,
Mhm.
who was on a podcast previously. We had a really good discussion about Malcolm and Marie that was so good, and I remember bits and pieces of it now that I'm rewatching it. But it's something that we just can't recreate as much as we want to. But
Right.
I'll definitely see if she can rewatch it sometime soon to see if we can try and rekindle that discussion because it was really good. I also watched The Harder They Fall, which is starring a man that is potentially problematic now.
Oh
Jonathan
no.
Jonathan Majors. It's come out that he may have abused some people physically. Um,
Oh, yikes.
which is that sucks for the people involved. You know, I ever since Kanye and Dave Chappelle, who are two artists whose content I've liked for a really long time but turned out to be horrible people, I have stopped connecting too deeply with celebrities.
Right, right. That's real.
I've learned how to absolutely love a celebrity and their work, but once they do something wrong, to just let it happen and not try to defend them because it doesn't matter. I don't know these people.
Right.
Um, so like yeah, that sucks for the people involved. What was I gonna say? He is playing Kang in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now, who is a multiversal being. Who he's playing a character who's there's gonna be like dozens of versions of that character throughout the franchise, and it seems like if all of this is true, they might have to recast him. Which,
Mm.
due to the fact that he's a multiversal type character, both makes it both harder and easier. Weirdly enough,
Yeah.
because in Quantumania, which was not his first time playing the character, he actually played the character in the Loki series, but his second time playing the character in an official capacity where he's playing the actual like main villain Kang, um, the main like variant. He at the like in the end credits there was him playing essentially hundreds of versions of the same character like in a stadium,
Hmm.
and so it was shown that all the different versions of Kang look like Jonathan Majors. So now they'll probably have to change that to be like not all of them look like Jonathan Majors, and so they when they recast him, it's another version of the character that like looks different.
Right.
So yeah, that's a weird situation.
It
Um,
is weird.
you know, hopefully, you know, the people wronged get some type of retribution.
Hmm.
So I finally finished up season three of no, I finished up season I think two of Star Wars Rebels a while back. I finally started the last season of Star Wars Rebels because in the last episode of Mandalorian, a Star Wars Rebels character appeared that made me want to get back into Rebels. And at first, I was watching it. I have mixed feelings about the Rebels art style. It's very different from the previous Star Wars animated art style in the Clone Wars series, and they kind of look like Muppets.
Ah,
Not gonna lie, and they have very like felty type skin. It's weird, um,
sounds weird.
and it's okay enough, but it's like I don't particularly like it. But rewatching it, just the story and the action was so good that at first I was like hyper fixating on the art style because it'd been a while since I watched it. But once I
Mhm.
got used to it again, I kind of just hyper focused on how good the story was and how good the characters and animation is. Rebels is a good show. One Piece. So Blind Wave, the reaction YouTube channel I watches, they did an April Fool's joke where they watched one episode of One Piece and they pretended like they were going to start a reaction series on One Piece and they didn't.
Mhm.
And they actually said out loud like at the beginning like we're only going to watch one episode a year, and people weren't sure if they were joking or not. They weren't. They watched one episode. Well, but what they do is so you know April 1st was a couple of days. Actually, it was yesterday before we're recording this on April 2nd, Sunday. Um, they they actually watch four episodes ahead so that so that the Patreon viewers can like be ahead of the YouTube viewers. So technically they're on episode like 6, but
Mhm.
at the Patreon tier I'm at, I can only get up to episode 4. So I
Mm.
so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go back in because I just watched their reactions. I didn't watch like the full length where you could watch it alongside them. So I decided I'm gonna go back and actually watch the full length because I haven't seen those episodes in a while. And I had been trying to rewatch it for a while now, and now that I've watched those first 4 episodes, I think I'm about to rewatch One Piece up until I get fully caught back up. I think
That's
I'm about to commit to rewatching a series that when I first watched it was around 700 episodes and is now well around. I think it's either around or a little bit above 1,000 episodes.
mhm.
And I know for a fact it's above 1,000 chapters and it's approaching 1,000 episodes. So yeah, I'ma try.
Good luck.
But yeah, that's all I got for media I'm consuming. Moving on to animation. My Adventures with Superman is moving to Adult Swim and will release this year supposedly. So My Adventures with Superman is an animated Superman series that's was supposed to be on Cartoon Network, but we saw some images from it, some character sheets a while back. But that's about it. It actually looks pretty cool if you could like look up the artwork, um, just to see what it looks like. And despite being the first and greatest hero of all time, Superman has only had two solo animated series. The one
Hmm.
from the Fleischer cartoons from like back in the 40s, and 50s, and his animated series from the 90s, which I'm currently rewatching and is amazing. And the Fleischer cartoons, I'm also I want to say rewatching because I actually did watch a decent amount of them when I was a kid. Because Fleischer brothers also did Betty Boop, and they had this. I had this VHS that had Betty Boop and Superman on it that I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. Um, so I've been going through those. Actually, in the very first meeting we had at
Hmm.
I actually was during like our lunch break was over there watching Superman on Fleischer Superman on YouTube while I was eating. Um,
That's so real.
but yeah, he's finally getting a third series where Batman has had like 1,000, uh, and Wonder Woman hasn't had one solo animated series. But let me not go on that tangent again. Just just but there's a chance that she might be getting one soon. Thank the
Nice.
Lord. She's easily the most popular female hero on planet Earth, but somehow she hasn't got her own anime series. Let me stop. Um, but now that it's on Adult Swim, I wonder if that means that it'll be a little bit more mature than it looks. Have you checked out the artwork?
I did. I really like it. It reminds me of I forgot what I was gonna say, so never mind. But yeah, I like the art style a lot.
It's definitely a very like Avatar: The Last Airbender, like American cartoon inspired by anime type art style.
Yeah.
Speaking of American comics in an anime art style, uh, the original cast of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World are reprising their roles for the animated Netflix adaptation that they're directly calling
Really?
an anime. Which I mean, Netflix just does that. I don't think this can really be considered anime, even though it's being animated by the studio called. I'm sorry, I'm like searching through my notes for the name of the Studio Ping Pong,
Mm.
who did the animation for Devilman Crybaby. Um,
Mm.
Despite that, the story, as much as it's inspired by anime, is still very American. I don't know. To me, just an anime art style doesn't make something an anime, but that's just me. Um,
Yeah, no, I agree.
but yeah, I feel like Netflix calls anything animated anime.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, they so like we've heard about this happening a while ago, but now we have like the original cast is coming back from the live action movie to actually voice the characters, which is dope.
Super dope.
I'm excited. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, both the comic and the movie are some of my favorite things ever. Now
Hmm.
it makes me want to reread the comic. I read it through twice. It's real good.
I I haven't read the comic, but I've watched the movie like a billion times. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I played the game. Grew up with the game actually. So yeah, this is really exciting.
Yeah, real excited. It's being produced by Edgar Wright, the guy who directed the live action, and scripted by the author of the comics, Brian Lee O'Malley.
Oh, dope.
So yeah, this is going to be 100% authentic, and because it's in a TV show format, they're probably going to do what the movie couldn't do, which is cover everything. Because when the movie released, the last book hadn't even come out yet,
Right.
so they didn't even really get a chance to cover everything. So this will probably be a super faithful adaptation, as well as from what I hear, it might even be adding even more context to the comic.
Oh,
So it'll be a faithful adaptation of the comic plus more.
we'd love to see it.
Like there will be more original music from the that fictional band within the series.
Nice.
And I'm excited to hear Brie Larson sing again because
Same.
that scene where she sings is amazing. Sticking on animation train, Unicorn Warriors Eternal. Did you get a chance to check out that trailer?
I did, and I'm super excited. The show looks fantastic.
Yeah, I should have checked it out a second time because I think I only watched it like once or twice. But this is by Genny Tartakovsky, the same guy who made Samurai Jack, Primal, and Dexter's Laboratory.
Hmm.
So, brief synopsis: set in a world that's been plagued by malevolent presence since the dawn of time, Unicorn Warriors Eternal tells the tale of a group of ancient heroes who, through countless reincarnations, have spent multiple lifetimes fighting to keep the forces of darkness at bay. Though a powerful sorceress named Melinda, a cosmic monk called Sang, and Edred, a warrior elf, are all committed to their mission, their lives are all upended when their reincarnation cycle is interrupted, which flings their souls into the bodies of unsuspecting teenagers who can't control their powers or remember who they truly are. This sounds dope.
Sounds very dope.
And like Gendy Tartakovsky just makes amazing cartoons.
For
Um,
real.
and this is going to be on Adult Swim as well, and I'm really excited for it. I think it's releasing this year. Get excited. So, The Bad Batch. Uh, The season finale was last week. It was a very sad season finale. I won't spoil any things that you don't watch it, but it was sad. And those who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. And I'm really excited to see what they go next season with how dour this season ended. But let's get to the good stuff. Trigun Stampede. It is so good.
So good.
It's unnecessarily good. It's
For real.
it shattered everybody's expectations because the art style changed, which I was a little bit trepidatious about because it was a weird choice. But when I heard what studio was doing it, I was a little bit more hopeful, but still a little bit worried until we finally saw it animated. And I was like, okay, the worry about the animation was gone, but I was always worried about and very skeptical about the story changes. And you know, despite how much I've kind of said I liked it, but there's certain aspects I don't like. Once we finally got to the finale, I was like, you know what? Those aspects of like it being too serious, I still stand by that. I think that there should have been so many more, like we said before, filler, but not filler the type that they make to you know, pad the story so that the manga catches up, but the type of filler that gives you some like alleviation throughout the story and some levity. We needed more.
Right.
We needed more of that, and I wish that that Vash was more goofy as a way to hide his emotions rather than being very obviously sad all the time.
Yeah.
I just felt like that took the depth away from his character when you show that he's sad all the time rather than having it being buried under his guise of goofiness and happiness. But those are my only complaints. Other than that, it's amazing, and I absolutely love how they recontextualize Knives' motivations because I don't really remember his motivations from the comics, and I think that's very telling about his motivations in the comics being much more shallow than they are in the show itself. Because I feel like the motivation is similar, but the ultimate goal is much more understandable.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me hear what you think about it overall without spoiling
So,
it just yet.
of course, I loved it. I will say, uh, I don't have the context of the original manga. I started reading it, but then like didn't really understand what was going on, to be honest. So I was like, So I watched Stampede first. Loved it. If I had a nickel for every piece of media that, and I won't elaborate further on that, but the plot points in Stampede and the plot points in some of the other media that I consume are very similar. And I don't know if that's telling about me as a person or telling about like the state of the world right now. It might be both.
Oh, same.
It's like, huh, I've seen that plot point before.
It's always two brothers, one evil, one good. I know what you mean. It's just it's
Yeah,
a trope. It's a trope.
yeah. But I loved it. The animation, fantastic. Everything about it was fantastic. There's one specific scene that I can't bring up here that like ah it had me like rolling around on the floor in agony in a good way, of course.
Okay, so saying that, let's get into spoilers. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! There will be a big red spoiler alert on the screen, like always. So yeah, let's get into it. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the scene with I can't remember their name right now. The
Robert,
bug creature
uh,
person.
uh,
And they
Zazie.
were like, yeah, and they were like, who's gonna do better from my planet? I was like, ah, man.
Could you be a little more specific?
Like, when I keep wanting to call her Millie, I know she's Meryl, but my brain is like Millie, because Millie was in the original Trigun. But when Meryl and Roberto had reached Knives, I did say Meryl. Meryl and Roberto had reached Knives' lab in July, and they were talking about like, who's gonna do better for my planet, humanity or Knives and his gang, and I was like, no, that's so real though.
Yeah,
Like I
no,
don't know.
for real. It's very there's definitely a level of kind of like environmentalism because like again we're talking spoilers like this is something that in the manga you don't find out until literally this point in the series. You don't find out like till the finale of that first part of the series. You don't find this out, but you learn this at the beginning that humans are coming from Earth to outer space and other planets because they destroyed the planet
Right.
the way that we're currently destroying the planet, and they are using these kind of like other dimensional beings to as an energy source, and they're living creatures, And
Right.
essentially, Knives is essentially like an environmentalist and like an animal rights activist. But yeah, that was definitely very real on Zazi's part. Which it wasn't until the episode like after that, which might have been finale when I realized that Zazie was a worm, and was like
Mhm.
literally just like one of those giant worms. I was like, oh, I didn't notice that before. I thought they were just like some experiment created by somebody, but no, they are like one of the animals that live on that planet. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
I got
I had
that from the when when they ate the main cast. I was like, oh, they're the head
no, I
worm.
just thought that I knew that they can control the worms, but I didn't realize it was like that.
Oh, to that capacity. That's
Yeah.
real.
Like when they had like I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention enough in that episode, but when Zazie had like turned into a bunch of bugs, I was like, when could Zazie do that? I don't remember
Where did
Zazie
that
doing that
come
before,
from?
but they
Yeah.
they probably did do that in that episode, and I just forgot. But yeah, that was dope. But also, Knives' whole plan of tapping into this energy to try and impregnate all the other plants so that they could kill all the humans and that the plants can populate the planet and essentially make the
Mm,
planet this luscious green place that they could live on and it's their own home. And he
right.
ultimately is doing this out of love for his brother. He wants to protect his brother and his people. He doesn't give a damn about the humans. But Vash is like, no, like the humans deserve to live beside us. They shouldn't all pay for the mistakes of their
A couple
ancestors.
people. Yeah. And it's like I think the biggest thing for me was like that, like how they represented it. Represented it, jeez. They represented that idea of like bodily autonomy and how like uncomfortable the last couple episodes were with the whole opening the rift thing. I was like, ugh, the whole time, but I understood narratively why it had to happen that way, and it was just great.
Oh yeah, you know what? I didn't think about it that way, and I think that's definitely your very like more feminine perspective because I didn't even think about it like that. But now that you point it out, you're absolutely right. That was very there's definitely some shades of like assault in that like a man
Yeah.
like a cis man like me just didn't think about until you just said it.
Yeah, because it's like I get that idea of like wanting. It's like in trying to give the other plants autonomy, Knives is taking away their autonomy by forcing them to become independent. Because it's like you don't know them. It's like what if they don't want the burden of consciousness of independence? Like, did you think about that? No. It's just it was man. Finale was great.
Yeah, and
Trigun
it's
was
funny
great. I really liked
because
it.
where he has those powers to kind of forcibly control people, the plants, Vash has the power to actually communicate with them.
Right.
So Vash knows what they want versus, Knives thinking that he knows what they want without
Right.
actually knowing. Um, but yeah, also like I see what they were doing with Roberto. Ultimately, I think he didn't serve much of a purpose
Yeah.
because I didn't care about him honestly when he
I was
died.
still sad when he died though.
I was gonna say that. Despite that, I actually was kind of sad when he died. Up,
Mostly because Meryl was sad though.
true, because honestly, up until he died, I really didn't care. And I actually had his death spoiled, and
Dang.
and I was like, dang, that sucks that I had that spoiled, but also I kind of don't care. But then what happened? I was like, dang, it's sad. But you're right. Now that you said it, I think I was only sad because Meryl was sad. I didn't really care that he was dead because I don't give a damn about his character. He wasn't an interesting character to begin with, but the impact he had on Meryl was significant, and that is the only thing that really mattered to me. But now that we are gonna get Millie, I'm happy, and
Yeah.
she's 100%, especially since because like I said before, I think she might be related to him with either his daughter or his niece or something like that.
Mm.
And the fact that they said that Millie specifically wanted to work for Meryl, I think that's a clue that she is related to Roberta because she
Yeah.
she wants to know like what happened to this person that I have this
Care
connection
about.
to, so I want to work with you and find out what happened and also kind of work alongside you to maybe finish what he didn't get a chance to.
Right.
And the next season is essentially setting up Maximum because
Mm.
the way Maximum begins is Vash is essentially kind of a he looks the exact same with the long hair and the beard and the glasses, but also he is like retired. Except in the manga, it's not that he lost his memory. He kind of just uh
Is retired.
yeah he's retired and doesn't want a part in anything. And then Wolfwood comes essentially recruits him like, hey, you can't like ignore what your brother is doing. Um, so yeah, Uh, I'm interested what they're doing with this because this time he has amnesia.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I won't say too much manga because I don't want to spoil it for you because it is very different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's all I really got to say about Trigun. How about you?
Yeah, same here. I love Wolfwood. That's all.
Oh yeah, Wolfwood's easy. One of my favorite characters. The episode when they first show his cross, I was so excited because his cross is one of my favorite weapons in anime history.
Oh, it's so
It's
cool.
so cool when he unfurls it and you're like, oh, that's a gun. His cross is a gun. That's cool. And he
Right.
is a super soldier and can just toss it around like it's nothing.
And then like the whole thing of having a cross that like I love it as a weapon, but then I also love it thematically because like I if man, I'm getting too excited. Hold on, let me calm down. Like I love characters with figurative crosses to bear, but then when you make the figurative literal like that, it's so good. So good. I love Wolfwood so
Oh
much.
yeah, oh yeah. I like the. Actually, no. I was about to say something that actually happened in the manga between like they touch on it a little bit. But let's actually move on to comics. But I'm reading Trigun Maximum, and again after finishing the amazing Trigun Stampede finale, which actually hold on, let's talk about that fight scene at the end. Hold on, we didn't talk
It
about that.
went
We didn't talk about that
so crazy.
because this thing, I was kind of upset at the way that Vash's powers looked visually because I was like, why does it look like a
Mm,
branch? It's weird. Because in the comic and in the anime, it's more similar to knives, and it's more kind of like shiny or reflective, or it's kind of like a porcelain type white. And I was like,
mm,
man, this doesn't look as cool as I thought it would. But I realized, oh, his wing was actually made out of his arm. That's why it looks different. But also,
yeah.
but also when he finally formed the gun, I was like, okay, that is almost exactly the exact same design of the giant arm cannon that he had in the comic. So I was like, okay, I'm satisfied now. even, even though the coloring was different, it still was the same design, and his is meant to be more kind of like a tree, like bark kind of. So
Mm,
I was like, okay, you know what? I'll take it back. It looks cool. But I'm excited to see what more he might do with that power in the future.
yeah, it's gonna be dope.
But yeah, in the last issue that I've read, without spoiling too much, uh, uh, Vash fights a member of the Gung Ho Guns, who you'll learn who they are eventually.
Mm,
And he's this samurai who uses like a sword that is very. I'm staring at the Metal Gear poster. It's very kind of like Metal Gear. This is character Metal Gear called something Sam. I forget his Jetstream Sam. And his sword has like a trigger on it, so he could pull the trigger and it shoots the sword out, so he could grab it and like essentially draw his blade faster. And
mm.
this samurai has a similar thing, but he also has like these roller blades that helps him move faster. So
Ooh.
in this world, which is very like Western inspired and everybody uses guns, he essentially has developed this technique to be able to use his sword as fast as people can pull their trigger,
Mm.
and it's really cool. Um,
Sounds really
and essentially, Vash doesn't want to kill people, so he doesn't.
right.
And he has this very interesting argument with Wolfwood about how he says essentially that like Vash, you're a coward because you don't want to take that extra step, and then Vash is like, no, you're the coward because you feel like you need to go that far when you don't, and you're afraid to fight the tougher battle, which is trying to do this without killing people. And I was like,
Mm.
ooh, that's so good. Oh, this is why I
Yeah,
love Trigun. Oh, and their relationship and the dichotomy between the two, so good.
so good.
But yeah, moving on. Naruto Sasuke's story and Mirai. So these two stories are honestly an example of what I think a continuation of Naruto should have been. Instead of jumping to their kids, we should have spent more time developing other characters. Granted, Sasuke has gotten a lot of development throughout Naruto to a point to where there's a whole section of Shippuden, which people call Sasuke Shippuden, because it's essentially just focused on Sasuke. We get no Naruto. But this Sasuke story is very interesting. But also, there's this other story with Mirai, which is the daughter of Asuma, who's one of the teachers of one of the teams in the original series, and it's real good. I wish that Naruto went this route instead of jumping straight to Boruto.
Mm.
So, DC Pride 2023. So, of course, it'll be back with a new anthology, including a multiversity story by Grant Morrison and Hayden Sherman, and a new LGBTQIA plus character encyclopedia, which is dope.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and DC Pride Through the Years #1, which is collecting 3 landmark out of print queer DC comics, so like some old stories about some older queer DC characters, which is dope. And I'm excited for Pride 3. This is the third year in a row doing it. I would definitely just checking out the first two, and I'm excited to see what they do with this one.
Sounds exciting.
Fables. So this is the comic that the Wolf Among Us game was based off of.
Mm,
Um, it was published by Vertigo, which is under DC, so I was able to read it through the DC Infinite app. Did you know it was based off a comic?
I did not.
Oh, I
This
didn't.
is new to me.
Yeah, I didn't know that you didn't know that. Yeah, Wolf Among Us is based off a comic, and
Wow.
I read the first two omnibuses. It's real good, but there are definitely some very like early 2000s out of date stuff in it that had me cringing a little bit and going, "Ooh, I feel like you could have wrote this differently."
Thanks.
but it's still good. It's one of those stories where it's like you kind of just got to take the good with the bad because it's old.
Yeah.
It's old at this point. The Flash by Mark Waid. So it's considered the best Flash run. It's from it ran from like the mid '80s to the like late '90s. It it's a comic that began Wally West's journey from Kid Flash to the main Flash. And I've only read the first issue so far, but it's essentially the first couple issues are retelling Wally West's origin as Kid Flash up until he became the Flash. For the people who don't know it, which I know it beats and pieces of it, so it's nice to learn it in its entirety. So it's honestly it's a really good starting point for anyone thinking about getting into Flash. Speaking of Flash, the current Flash comic, Flash 1 Minute War arc, um, currently in the story, the Flash fam are attempting to break into the Fraction's HQ, which the Fraction are this group of people who essentially are stealing the Speed Force and using it to conquer planets. And the Flash family is attempting to destroy the device that gives them access to the Speed Force. Lazarus Planet. It's continuing with the anthology stories. Lazarus Planet Dark Fate features stories of two new characters. Circuit Breaker, who's a new trans DC hero who will be getting a story in DC's Pride anthology this Pride month. And I'm not completely sure how to pronounce their name. They're a Chinese character. It's spelled XANTHE. I want to say Xanthi, and their last name is Zhao. Is a non-binary Chinese hero who'll be getting their own comic series called Spirit World, which I'm also really excited to read.
Nice.
Yeah, also Lazarus Planet ended with Batman and Robin, I think number 5, and it was an interesting crossover event. I'm not the biggest fan of crossover events, but this one introduced me to a lot of cool characters, so I don't hate it. World's Finest, in this issue of World's Finest, it's Batman, Superman, World's Finest, so essentially just Batman, Superman working together, and sometimes other DC heroes coming about. It's essentially, it feels like a modern day interpretation of those old original Batman and Superman comics where they're just doing a bunch of ridiculous stuff that doesn't make any sense, but it's really fun and goofy. And in this issue, Supergirl and Robin went on a date, and it did not go well.
Oh dear.
So last but not least, Icon versus Hardware. So these are two of the Milestone characters. Milestone is a universe of characters that Static, as some people know, Static Shock. I'm not gonna go on that rant again. It's just Static.
Yep.
In this issue, Icon sends his, I want to say sidekick, but his partner, Raquel, off to a boarding school to learn essentially about privileged white people. That way it can kind of help her in her career as a superhero to learn how these type of people think. While Hardware discovers time travel and starts making changes that he thinks will better his life in the world, but it doesn't. And it will likely lead, obviously this comic is called Icon versus Hardware, so it's probably going to lead to him in, a fight with Icon, because Icon's like, please stop messing with the timeline.
Real.
All right, so do you have anything you've been reading lately, comics or any novels or anything like that?
Nope, not besides Trigun, which I started today. Finished
Cool.
Trigun Maximum. All these subtitles are messing with me. Finished Stampede
Stampede
yesterday.
Maximum.
Right.
I honestly was kind of upset that they called it Stampede and they didn't call it the new anime Maximum.
But I feel like that would be confusing.
Yeah, it would be confusing because it's not a continuation, so I understand why they didn't do it. But back when I thought it was a continuation, I was like, why didn't they call it Maximum?
Yeah, Chainsaw Man did update this week. I was wrong. This newest chapter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I like this new Devil. I like them a lot. I like their design.
Yeah. So spoiler.
I'm really excited.
Spoiler for Chainsaw Man. We're definitely gonna spoil the Falling Devil or Primal Fear.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were trying to say, oh, it's the Suicide Devil. No, it's not the Suicide. It's not the Suicide Devil. It's the Falling Devil. Falling goes beyond suicide. It's a primal fear. It's something that people are just afraid of in general.
Right, and I'm so glad we're getting into more primal fears. Claustrophobia Devil win, because that's like peak primal fear. Exactly. I want to see what Fujimoto
I mean,
does to make it just.
we've seen the darkness level before, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a primal fear as well, like fear of darkness.
Yeah, it's like if darkness and falling are this insane and evil, I want to see what Fujimoto does with claustrophobia.
Yeah,
I need to know.
yeah. The last two, and then we also saw a primal fear that can also be considered one of the four horsemen, death.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like death is both a primal fear as well as one of the four horsemen. So that's cool.
Yeah,
To have that kind of dichotomy. Yeah, moving
love
on
it.
to TV and film. Uh, like I mentioned, I've been watching Mandalorian. A character from Rebels appeared in the last episode, and the last episode overall was much better than the last few episodes. Season 3 hasn't been hitting very hard compared to the first two seasons, mostly because they resolved this really big storyline in a completely separate show in the span of 2 episodes. It was weird. Uh,
Yeah, I remember a lot of outrage on Twitter about that.
it was the weirdest decision ever made in the history of Star Wars TV shows specifically. There have been weirder decisions made like in the movies, but in the shows specifically that they've been making recently, it was so weird because The Mandalorian was on a high. It's doing so good. People loved the first season. People liked the second season as much as the first season, but people still liked it a lot. I personally think
Mm-hmm.
the second season is just as good as the first season. But the third season, they really dropped the ball by having this major story arc that that was set up to be the main plot of the second season. Excuse me, the third season resolved at the not even the beginning, like the middle towards the end of this other show that's about Boba Fett. It was weird, man.
Sounds weird.
But this episode was good, and I hope it just gets better. With the storyline they're going for, which is naturally seeing as the show called The Mandalorian, they're focusing on the Mandalorians in general, and not just Din Djarin, the main Mandalorian, but the entire Mandalorians, kind of bringing back their culture.
Ooh.
So, live action Ghost of Tsushima. So this is a quote from Chad Stahelski, who also is the director of the last four John Wick movies. The curse of video game movie is kind of lifted. It can be done. You just got to give it love and attention. And Ghost of probably all the other video game movies in development, I think that's one that's going to land. So this is great. I'm glad that people who are making live action video game adaptations, especially the PlayStation ones, which PlayStation is known for their narrative stories,
Right.
are looking at The Last of Us and going, oh, if we actually just care about the property that we're pulling from, respect the property that we're pulling from, and don't think that everything we do is going to be better than that original property, and work with the people who made that original game to make it as faithful as possible while also adding more context and adding things that only a film can add versus a video game, we can actually make something that people like. I'm so glad that
Oh,
people are taking that lesson from The Last of Us, because that's all you have to do.
right. It's not hard.
I saw this hilarious meme where it was like Xbox fanboy watching the Last of Us series, and then a PlayStation fanboy comes and puts a gun to his head. Nope, he said, nope, turn it off, turn it off. You made your choice. Go and watch that Halo. He said, go and watch that Halo show. Go and watch that Halo show, because that Halo show is terrible. It's a show that makes a mistake. Like Halo has a narrative that you can just follow. It also has what novels that you could also pull from. It's weird.
Oh yeah, no, there was no excuse for it to be bad then.
It's because they decided to do a thing that a lot of people tried to defend, and I feel like now that The Last of Us has come out, a lot of people are either going to rescind their opinions, or a lot of people are going to get on the people who have those opinions ass by saying it's okay that it's different. Of course, it's going to be different because it's a TV show or it's a video game. And then you see The Last of Us and go, oh, look at that. It is very different in a lot of ways, but it is also very similar in a lot of ways because they know that you need a balance. And Halo did not have a balance; it was just aggressively different,
Yeah.
which is not what anybody wanted. But
I think um also like not just The Last of Us, but the adaptation for Automata, as much as I hate to bring it up, it's just a good adaptation. Like it's different enough to where like it still encourages you to go play the game, but not in a way where it's like me watching it as a fan is like this is terrible. Like and it adds more context. Like you get stuff in the Nier anime that you wouldn't get playing the game. You would have to read the light novels or read the world guides or watch the stage plays. The anime just gives it to you straight. And like that I love it. I love that. And I feel like people shouldn't be so afraid to adapt video games. You like the dude said, you got to give it attention, you know?
like, I can't wait till we see a proper Resident Evil adaptation. And
Oh
honestly,
yeah.
I think it can work in a movie, but I honestly think they should just make it a TV show.
Absolutely.
I feel like almost
That's
every like narrative story, like I'm staring at this Metal Gear poster. I want a live action Metal Gear. And sure, I think a movie would be fine, but I think you've got to do it as a TV show because I want to see Snake interact with every single one of the bosses. And I don't know if you can do that in a movie without making it like 3 hours long.
right.
So I think that most of these video games should be like TV shows, other than the ones that don't have like a very focused story, like Sonic and Mario. You can make those movies, and you can
Right.
do whatever you want. The problem with the Sonic movies is just that it should have just been animated. Let's be real.
It absolutely should have.
This
There's no reason for it to be live action.
A Sonic movie should just be what the Mario movie currently is. That's what a Sonic movie should be like. It shouldn't be. We don't need real people in Sonic.
Yeah. Because every time they put real people in Sonic, like even in the games, it's terrible.
But speaking of Chad Stahelski, John Wick 4. So I went to go see it. It was fun. I liked it a lot. It's the epitome of mindless action. It's so good. The action is just so good. And the action scenes go on for a long time, which is what you want. That's what you're here for. If you're going to go see John Wick, you're going there for the action. You're not necessarily going there for the story. The story's good enough to push the action forward. That's what it is. And
Right.
it was just a fun movie. It was longer than the rest as far as I could tell. It was like 2 hours and 40 minutes or something. And when I saw it that time, I was like, dang, that's a long movie. But I had fun. I still like the third one the most. The third one is really good, but the fourth one was fun. And the fourth one feels like it might be the final movie in the series, but they might be doing a couple spin-off with other characters, so we'll see.
Right.
It was fun. I don't have much to say because it's not a very like narrative-driven story to talk about. All I can say is that there's some really good action scenes. Donnie Yen is incredible. He plays a blind assassin. He's so good,
Ooh.
man. Donnie Yen is such a good martial artist and actor and performer. He knows how to fight for the camera. And there's this scene where John Wick fights with nunchucks that is just so good, and it's so funny watching him use nunchucks in a practical way rather than the more kind of like Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles type of way. It was so funny watching him just slap people in the head with nunchucks. It was hilarious. But yeah, it's definitely if you're just into like just fun action, it's a great movie to go watch. So yeah, moving on to video games, we've actually got a lot because a lot of stuff has come out recently. So we're gonna start off with CD Projekt Red offering menstrual leave. So they tweeted, "We're proud to offer menstrual leave to employees. Team members can now focus on their comfort and health by taking time off when suffering from period pain. It's all about inclusivity and fostering a supportive workplace." What do you think? Because I
I
don't
think that's
have much of a opinion being a cisgendered man.
I think that's great, honestly, because like again, setting the standard for that to happen, A, and B, like to be honest, as a person who menstruates, that shit sucks. It sucks. And then having to come into work and like I can't call out for that. So having to come into work while all that's happening, it sucks. So I wish that other workplaces will follow suit. I hope so. I have hope.
Yeah, I hope that this encourages other workplaces to do the same. So, Redfall. Uh, so, have you checked out any of the? I think before you might have checked out a trailer a couple episodes ago of Redfall. It's a game made by
So.
Arcane. It's an open world vampire slaying first person shooter. Um,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
I did.
So I was initially concerned because this is the most kind of generic looking of all their Arcane games, which tend to be some of the most unique games in the industry, in my opinion, like Dishonored and Prey and all that. Um,
Right.
but the previews make it sound and look promising. So there have been a lot of previews where they show some gameplay, and it looks good. I've heard it described in those previews as Far Cry made by Stephen King, or like Arcane's take on Far Cry, which honestly makes me excited because I like the Far Cry franchise. That combined with Arcane's signature immersive sim gameplay and
Mhm.
the amount of detail they put into their worlds, as well as the amazing level design that Arcane does. Have you played Dishonored?
I have not, but I've watched a little bit of gameplay. It's a good game.
Oh man, is that the type of game you're interested in? Because I would highly suggest.
Uh, Not really, but I'd give it a shot. Like I'm one of those people that like even if it doesn't look like it'll interest me, I'll at least try
I'll
and
tell you
play
what.
it.
I'll tell you what. Both games are on Game Pass.
Oh, bet.
So
Say
if
less.
you ever subscribe to Game Pass for whatever reason, just check it out.
I was
Um,
about to say I get to try it out and I don't have to pay for it. Well,
well,
really,
you don't have to pay.
essentially,
You don't have to pay extra for it.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, it looks good. So Bethesda's owned by Xbox, and that's why the first two Dishonored are on Game Pass, and this will also be coming day one to Game Pass. So I don't really have a reason not to play it when I'm already interested in it,
Yeah.
since I don't have to pay extra for it. So moving on, a AAA TMT game is in development. So
Oh.
I don't remember who the developer will be, and I don't think I wrote it down. But here's some information I got from Polygon. Uh, it is based off the comic The Last Ronin. Like the comic, The Last Ronin video game adaptation will be a darker, more mature take on the typical colorful Ninja Turtles. According to Doug Rosen, Senior Vice President for Games and Emerging Media at Paramount Global, the right holders for TMNT, in an interview with Polygon last week, Rosen likened the upcoming third-person action role-playing game to Sony's recent God of War titles, and said it will be authentic to the story of the Last Ronin arc, which is set in the future, where only one of the turtles have survived and the other ones are dead. You'll primarily play as the last surviving turtle, but the other turtles may be playable in flashbacks. So what that makes me think is, so in the comic, and you might be going like, it's a digital game. Why would you want to play as just one turtle? So what they're
Right.
100% going to do is this one turtle, he also has all of the other turtles' weapons. So you'll most likely be able to switch between all of their weapons. So you'll be able to switch between the swords, the nunchucks, the sai, and the bow staff. And
Right.
that's how they get around the idea of you playing as all of the turtles in effect that you play as one turtle, but he uses the techniques and weapons of all of the turtles.
Got you. That makes
And
sense.
I know who the turtle is. I don't know if they'll change it in the comic. I won't spoil who it is, but I haven't read that comic yet. I just got spoiled in a long time ago before I started reading the Ninja Turtle comics. But I'm excited. I've been wanting the AAA Ninja Turtle game, and especially since I've been both reading the current Ninja Turtle comics and a couple months back when I played the beat 'em up Ninja Turtle game that released not too long ago. Um,
I love them. I
it's
love them so
it's
much.
so good, and I want that same studio to make a Power Rangers beat 'em up. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I'm excited. This sounds good. It being like God of War makes me really interested because
Yeah.
I like God of War. I hope that means like God of War minus the RPG stuff. Because as much as I like God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, RPG stuff is unnecessary. The whole like gear system, it's
Mm.
unneeded. The only thing they needed in that game was the skill tree for the weapons. Other than that,
Yeah.
they didn't need the gear stuff. The gear stuff should have been purely cosmetic and not actually have anything to do with the like damage values or whatever. I think that's some unnecessary
Yeah.
stuff that most people kind of ignore when they play the game. They kind of just find an armor that gives them a specific type of skill that they like and just stick with that armor and upgrade it to the max. That's what I did. I got like these 3 armor pieces that like would slow down time when I hit a perfect dodge, and I was like, oh,
Mm.
this is
Ah.
this is amazing. I
I love hack and slash games that have like that mechanic. I call it witch time because
Oh
that's
yeah,
what it's called in Bayonetta, and that's what I'm most familiar with.
yeah. I feel like
But
anybody that plays Devil May Cry probably calls it Quicksilver.
yeah, it's like I have the witch time timing ingrained in my blood. Like that's how much I love it.
Yeah. But moving on to Final Fantasy 16. So did you get a chance to check out any of the gameplay?
I did, and
Good,
I like it.
good.
I know
Because
I was a naysayer at first, but I like it
yeah,
now.
because I
I'm
know last time you weren't able to check it out, but it is straight up made by this. The combat director is from Devil May Cry 5, so it is just straight up a hack and slash.
yeah.
Yoshi P and Koji Fox hosted a Final Fantasy 16 panel at PAX East. These are like producers and directors in the game. Um, they broke the panel down into 4 parts: the narrative, characters, visuals, and the battle system. And they surprised us by showing us live gameplay of it running on a PS5, which is it's exclusive to until further notice. Um, in terms of narrative, they discussed how the story they're telling is a bit of a parallel to the real world's reliance on fossil fuels. The major kingdoms of the world of Valistia are built around these things called mother crystals, which are used to mine ether, which is Final Fantasy's energy source. But like the oil fields in real life, they're beginning to die, so wars are fought over the precious resources. Final Fantasy games tend to have this real life parallel, like how Final Fantasy VII is this amazing environmental story. Honestly, it's really good.
Oh yeah.
Uh, in terms of character, they focused on the main character, the main protagonist, Clive Rosfield, and the other dominants. The dominants are people who have the ability to transform into icons of this world's summons, and they're used as weapons by the different governments of the world. The story will take place over 3 stages of Clive's life, from his teens, his 20s, and his 30s. The story is essentially after the death of his brother, Clive seeks revenge, but along his journey, he will meet people who will show him that there's more to life than revenge. You know, very classic tale.
Yeah.
Um, but these icons, they discuss how some of them are worshipped, some of them even rule a country, while others are either treated as slaves or resented by the community, similar to like Naruto and the Tale of Beast.
Mm.
In terms of visuals, they showed us, you know, the end-game graphics live and showcased the scope of the world, which was surprisingly big because they're constantly talking about how it's a linear game, but there are
Mm.
sections of the game that are surprisingly wide and give you areas to explore to do side quests and go and like fight enemies and level up. It's actually surprisingly big.
Does
And
sound
also, one of the things that continuously surprised me, and I don't know when I'll get used to it, but the load times on PlayStation 5 are ridiculous.
surprising.
They're stupid. Like when I'm playing Resident Evil 4, like the first time you start playing a game, you don't notice it because you know you just started. But when you shut it down and come back the next day and cut it back on and see how fast it loads, oh my god, it's
Yeah, I
so
bet.
quick. Oh my god, it's incredible. But last but not least, they showed us some more of the gameplay and how Clive will be able to switch between three icon aspects of your choosing during combat, each providing their own unique abilities. You can choose three at a time, but there's more than three icon aspects that you can unlock. Um, but the coolest of all, they showed several iconic battles. These are the boss fights where you play as an icon fighting another icon, and they look amazing. They've stressed this before, but they reconfirmed here that every single icon battle will be unique, and they showed us proof with a short trailer of several of them. Um, like before, we last time we talked about Final Fantasy 16, you didn't get a chance to check it out, but they have. Now that you're interested, you might want to check out it later. Is they showed full on gameplay, and they showed an entire icon boss battle of
I did watch
oh
that.
yeah,
I did watch
the
that
main.
after the
Oh, thank
yeah
God.
after we
When he
recorded.
was fighting
Yeah,
Garuda,
yeah,
that was some God of War type stuff.
for real.
I was like,
Shout out to the Colossus.
I was like, this is crazy. When he was just his regular self and he was fighting Garuda when she was fully transformed and she was like on her knees clawing at him, I was like, oh my god, this is the type of shit that I like.
Right.
But I was most excited to get a glimpse of the one where you play as Phoenix. In the trailer I sent you, where they show it's kind of like Star Fox, where you're flying around and shooting. I'm really excited to see what that looks like in the full game. They also discussed their take on difficulty settings in combat. Instead of having an easy, normal, and hard setting, they give you the ability to equip three different accessibility items.
Oh, nice.
But there's more than three of them. So it's the Ring of Timely Focus, which temporarily slows time before enemy attacks connect, um, providing you more time to react and dodge. The Ring of Timely Assistance, which automatically issues commands to your pet dog Torgal. The Ring of Timely Strikes, which executes combo attacks with just one press of the attack button, so essentially auto combos, so that you know, in these type of games, I also have trouble doing combos. I'm not going to use this, but
Yeah, same.
I can understand why people will want to, because they don't want to have to try and string these things together. They kind of just want to have cool things be done automatically. Um,
Right.
the Ring of Timely Evasion, which auto dodges most attacks, and the Ring of
Mm.
Timely Healing, which automatically uses potions to keep your healing topped up. And now they didn't discuss if there were other accessibility features beyond combat. Hopefully there will be, but this is a very interesting way to do accessibility in combat, to directly incorporate it into the combat system. I think is very interesting, and it's something I would like to see more people try out. Because just giving people the ability to equip 3 of these, like if you're just really interested in the world and the story, you can just throw in timely evasion, which automatically dodges, timely healing, which automatically heals, and you can throw on that timely assistance, so the dog automatically fights without you having to control him, and you're gonna have a good time, and you're barely gonna have to do much. It's not gonna be too hard for you.
Right. And it's like I love difficulty like settings like that where it's not just a hard setting like oh the game is easy now, oh the game is medium now. Like I like having that control over it. It's like I don't want the game to be too easy because then I'm not going to have fun. But if I can like equip something that makes my quality of life better, fantastic. Nier does this
Yeah. So,
with
oh,
plug-in chips, which
well,
is super cool.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, Automata does something similar, where you have plug-in chips, and some plug-in chips make the game easier, but you can equip them at your leisure. They're not like forced on you. It's great.
Yeah, in The Last of Us, you can actually adjust the difficulty of specific things separately. Like you can adjust the difficulty of. There's obviously regular difficulty settings, But then
Right.
beyond that, you have the ability to adjust how difficult the enemy, like how aggressive the enemies are, how easy it is for them to detect you when you're trying to be stealthy, and how much health they have, how much health you have. You can adjust those things individually, which is really cool.
See, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Difficulty settings like that go hard.
But yeah, but moving on to a big one, and after this we have one more. So, Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. There was
Oh
gameplay.
yeah.
Let's go. Zelda's producer Algie Alnuma hosted a gameplay presentation to show off the new abilities featured in Tears of the Kingdom. He showed 4 abilities in the trailer: Recall, Fuse, Ultra Hand, and Ascend. Recall rewinds an object's movement, and the example he gives is rewinding a fallen rock to reach the Sky Islands. And in a previous trailer, they showed a giant metal ball falling down a hill, and Link rewinding it and going up and healing the bokoblins as it goes back up. He showed Fuse. With Fuse, you can stick various items together to create weapons with new effects, and they showed 4 examples. One was creating a hammer out of a stick and a boulder, which also solves a problem that a lot of people have, which a lot of people don't enjoy the weapon durability thing. I think it's cool, but I understand why some people don't. This solves that problem in the sense that when you fuse, like the stick in the gameplay presentation was almost broken, but when you fuse the rock to it, its durability was greatly increased, and that's a fix to that problem. Where rather than being able to craft weapons like some people wanted, you'll be able to fuse weapons. So if your weapon's about to break, you fuse it with another weapon, and it makes it stronger,
Right.
and it kind of resets its durability. Uh, Another was increasing the reach of a pitchfork by attaching it to the end of a long stick, which I think is really cool. Even though it looked ridiculous once he put it on his back. And they showed that you can attach various items to arrows, like True Jelly to create an ice arrow, or Keys Eye to create homing arrows. And I think, well, before I say this, and they showed that you can attach a push room to a shield to create a smoke screen during combat. And I think that this is another example of what we were just talking about, kind of incorporating accessibility directly into gameplay.
Yeah.
Because if you have a hard time aiming, you can put on that eye and it does it for you. You have to collect them first, but you do that and it helps you out. And also with the push room, it makes combat a little bit easier because you just obscure their vision and just sneak attack them and knock them out with one
Right.
hit, or do a significant amount of damage with one hit. And again, this is a dope way to incorporate accessibility directly into the gameplay and give people the option to do these things if they want it easier, or not do it if they want it harder, or
Right.
situational where you want certain things to be harder, you want certain things to be easier. It's really cool. I need games to do more stuff like this.
For real.
In previous trailers, it was shown that some enemies have horns that look like swords and sides and tridents. And tons of people theorized that you could use those to craft weapons. And based on this gameplay presentation, it seems like that they were right. And you'll be able to, when you kill enemies, you'll pick up their horns and you could use it to make a sword, or you could use it to attach it to arrows and make the arrows stronger, stuff like that, which is really dope.
Sounds dope.
The next and arguably most exciting ability was Ultra Hand, which is the ability to take materials around Hyrule and stick them together to create vehicles and maybe houses, which
Ooh.
they haven't said anything about that. But I just feel like that's a thing that people might do. Um, the examples shown were Link building a boat to cross a river that he didn't have enough stamina to swim across, and a flying machine with a sail. They also showed the car and flying machine from the previous trailer. The key components to all of these are these mechanical wheels and turbines that have limited battery life that may be determined by Link. Therefore, you'll be able to upgrade how big the battery is and how long these things last before they run out of battery and crash down to the ground.
Right.
um, the last ability shown was Ascend. If you're in a place with a ceiling, you can go through to the floor above you. They showed this working in a stone gazebo looking type of place and a cave up to the top of a mountain. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I mentioned before that I watched a video from Zeltic on YouTube where he analyzed a patent that revealed how Ascend works. And
Mm.
it looks, based on the patent and based on what Aonuma said in this trailer, that there won't really be a limit on how high you can go. The only limit, assumably, if this isn't just something that they fixed eventually, but in the patent they showed that the limit may be whether the ceiling is flat enough, or if the place that you're going to be popping up from once you get to the top is flat enough. So if it's not
Right.
flat enough in those areas, you might not be able to do it. But as long as it's flat enough, it doesn't matter how high, you can get to the top. At least
Mm.
that's what it seems like, which is dope, and that will help people save on a lot of stamina.
Definitely.
And that will probably force people to maybe start focusing on like health over stamina
Yeah.
because they know that they can do that now. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I considered buying the limited edition OLED. I really did, but I'm gonna stick to my convictions, and I'm gonna wait for the next Nintendo console. Um,
You
and,
are crazy.
and play
I
and play Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom when that happens, which is gonna be tough.
good luck.
Like I'm considering just maybe just actually playing Tears of the Kingdom before Breath of the Wild and then going back to Breath of the Wild because I did that with Doom and I actually could low key. I don't think I'm gonna have the same thing I did with Doom where I actually like Doom 2016 more than Doom Eternal, but
Mm.
I think I'm still gonna have a good time if I go back and play Breath of the Wild after Tears of the Kingdom. But I think I want to play Breath of the Wild. I don't know. I'm at a crossfix. Now I'm at the point where like, and this is the a thought that I always had is I could just get it, play it, and then of course naturally this is what I was gonna do anyway.
Right.
When the next console comes out, I'm gonna sell my Switch and then I'm gonna buy the new one. And the thing is, I know I have the money to do it. I don't know. I feel like I don't want to play it on this weak ass console.
That's real.
So I think I'm just gonna wait. I think I'm gonna wait, and I'm gonna have to play Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom, and it's gonna be painful. And also, I don't know if I have the strength to not just watch people play the game all the way through like I did with Breath of the Wild. I think I'm low key just gonna completely spoil myself on Tears of the Kingdom.
That's real. That's what I did with actual Breath of the Wild. Because to be honest, I'm gonna say something so controversial. I didn't like Breath of the Wild when it first came out. I was like, this game sucks. It looks like it sucks. I'm not interested in it. Where's my linear Zelda gameplay? Because I've been a Zelda fan for a very, very long time. Grew up on the series. I didn't like it at first. I was like, this game, I don't like it. I'm just not a fan. Then when I got my Switch, it was the one and only game I had for a very, very long time. Because my parents, oh, my poor sweet parents, they were like, Zelda game? Aiara likes Zelda. So they got me Breath of the Wild. So I was kind of forced to play it. And the more that I played it, the more I enjoyed it. However, probably not going to beat it. I'm just, yeah, too much.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough playing that before Tears of the Kingdom, knowing how much they add. But the last thing we got is Resident Evil 4 remake. It's out. I've played it. Let's get to talking about it. So my only experience with the original was actually playing a bit of the VR version on Oculus. So
Mm.
this was my first time playing what most considered to be the best Resident Evil of all time, as well as one of the greatest games of all time. And honestly, it deserves both of those titles again. Um, if this if this came out before Dead Space remake, I probably would be talking about it the same way I did Dead Space remake. But unfortunately, I feel like because it kind of took some of the gas out of my tank when it came to survival horror, that
Mm.
I'm not gonna be praising it as highly as Dead Space. I still think, until further notice, if Spider-Man comes out this year, Dead Space is my game of the year. But it's stupid fun. It's so good. And despite being a remake, as I feel like as weird as this sounds, it's a clear evolution of the last two remakes, if that makes sense. Which obviously it would be because it's a remake of a game that was the revolution of the two games before that. Um,
Right.
just like the original games, the action to horror ratio has slowly been pushed towards the action from like two remake to three remake to four remake, but it
Mm.
still manages to be very charming with the amount of horror and camp. So a lot of people were afraid that they were gonna try to make it more scary and therefore maybe even remove some of the action and remove some of the campiness and goofiness from the original Resident Evil 4. They didn't. And everybody who played the original thousands of times, because it's a lot of people's favorite game, have said that it is a very faithful remake. Um,
That's Where's everybody going? Bingo?
yeah, that was great. For example, the regenerators are one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen in a video game. So I first encountered regenerators in Resident Evil 3 remake, and they were just these thin, pale, naked, faceless zombies, kind of like Slender
Mm.
Man, but not super scary. In Resident Evil 4, they go full on Slender Man. They're way taller. Their
Ooh.
bodies are more unproportionate with like super long arms and they're like in the shape of a pear, and they move unnaturally. It's very creepy. And like they wiggle a lot and then they stretch their arms out to hit you across the goddamn room.
Ugh.
And if you shoot off their legs,
Hmm.
they flop around at frightening speeds like a fish to try and grab you. It's horrifying. And this all happens in pitch black, by the way. Uh,
Ugh. Gross.
and I don't know if you can tell by their name, but they can regenerate and are damn near immortal. And you have to find a specific like scope that can like see through their body, so you can find their 3 hearts and try to hit them. And let me tell you what, you will waste a lot of ammo trying to hit those hearts if you aren't playing on mouse and keyboard. So I wasted a lot of ammo trying to hit those hearts, and eventually it was just like, I wasted a lot of ammo. I'm just going to run. So I'm currently in the middle of my second playthrough. Next time I see a regenerator, I'm shooting off their legs and I'm running. It's not worth it. They're horrifying.
Yeah.
I was running for my life. I was so scared. It was so creepy.
Sounds scary.
But speaking of tough enemies, the bosses are mwah. They're so good. As a lover of hack and slash games, and like we were just talking about Final Fantasy 16 bosses looking amazing, the great bosses are a must for me. And Resident Evil 4 has some of the best bosses in the franchise so far as I've played. From a giant mutated fish in a lake, which in my playthrough, which I upped the difficulty in, was mildly annoying, and I kept dying, and I was so mad. But the first time it was like hella easy, and I didn't die once. But to a giant mutated person, and by giant I mean like a Jack and a Beanstalk giant. Like they're still mostly humanoid. They're not just like they're not like your usual giant tentacle giant Resident Evil boss. They were like a literal giant person type monster. To a mutated soldier that reminds me of the main protagonist from Prototype. If you've heard of the Prototype series,
I love Prototype. That's one of my favorite games.
Okay, we're gonna have to have a discussion about Prototype at some point, because I either need a new one or a remake of the first one.
For real, I played it. Well, not played it. I watched someone play it. Probably when I was way too young to be watching someone play.
I played the first one through at least twice, and recently my brother asked me to buy the second one for him on Xbox, and because our accounts are connected, it automatically downloaded onto my Xbox, and I went into my games to like play something. At one point, I was like, "Why the hell is Prototype 2 here?" But I'm probably gonna play it eventually. But yeah, Prototype's amazing, and he looks like Alex Mercer, like with the giant blade on his arm. It's very cool, and it was a very fun boss fight that really used like the knife, which was dope. But yeah, it's a real good game. But without spoiling anything, based on certain things revealed in the story, they are 100% doing a Resident Evil 5 remake.
Nice.
My only question is, will they do another remake of Resident Evil 1 beforehand? Because for those who don't know, they actually remade Resident Evil 1 for the GameCube and the PS2. And I think maybe it was on Xbox too. And then I think they remastered that remake for like Xbox 360 and PS3. And I think it might also be on Wii. So they already remade it before, but it's remade in the style of the original, where it still has fixed cameras and it still has tank controls. Whereas the modern remakes remove all of that stuff. So I'm wondering if, before they do Resident Evil 5, if they'll remake Resident Evil 1, because as you know, Wesker is the main villain of Resident Evil 5. And
right.
If you like, based on like the games that we have remade so far, you don't know who Wesker is. Wesker isn't in 2, he isn't in 3, and he isn't in 4. And if you just jump to Resident Evil 5 and you have this villain Wesker who has this like history with Chris, who was also one of the main protagonists in the original Resident Evil 1, it would be confusing for the people who have only been playing the remakes and aren't huge Resident Evil fans. So I feel like they would have to do a remake of Resident Evil 1, another remake, before a remake of Resident Evil 5. That way people aren't confused about both Chris and Wesker, because they've had limited experience with Chris and Wesker through the last few games.
Right.
So to me that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, but I think they will, because I feel like they've gotten their groove. So people were a little bit upset about Resident Evil 3 because they cut this one section of the game out of it. Overall, because I haven't played the original Resident Evil 3, I thought it was good. It was nice, short and sweet. It was fine. It's a good place to play that game. I think it would be dope if they made a version of it, because the original Resident Evil 3 was called Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. It'd be cool if they made an edition of the game called like the Nemesis edition, like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, where they actually added that level that they removed. I think that would be cool. That would be dope. But Resident Evil 4, they learned their lesson, and it's literally been getting 10 out of 10s. So if they do, I think that because they are going to continue to do remakes, I don't see them not eventually doing Resident Evil 1. And I think, like I said, it would make sense that they do Resident Evil 1 before Resident Evil 5. The question is, right, will they do Resident Evil 6? Because Resident Evil 6 is a game that people don't like a lot.
Yeah.
So they would have to like essentially make it a completely different game. So either they remake it and low-key completely remake it, or they just don't do it at all because it's not worth touching because people don't like it and they don't feel like completely making a new version of that game. But Resident Evil 5 is a mixed bag for a lot of people. For a lot of people, it was the first step towards what they didn't like about Resident Evil 6. Whereas a lot of people, despite that, still really enjoyed it. Like myself, I've never played it in its entirety, and you've said before that you've played it, right?
Which one?
Resident Evil 5.
I didn't play it. I watched someone play it.
Yeah, you said you like a friend played it or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also co-op, so I feel like you could have played it with that friend, unless it was like two friends. But
Yeah, it was two friends. They were playing co-op together.
yeah, but if they remake it, we gonna have to play co-op on Resident Evil 5 together.
Oh, bet.
But yeah, that's all I got. Resident 4 was great. I liked it a lot. Anything you got before we wrap this up?
Nope, that's all I got.
All right. So my ads below me. You can find Aiara's at below them. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Peace.
Peace.